Perhaps it was because he kept them in his pocket all year round and didn't see much light. What are you talking about? Tangwa pretended not to understand. Strange, didn't you notice? Why is everyone looking at us from time to time? Mu Xiaoning raised his head gently, revealing his eyes. They didn't look like the eyes of a boy who was less than 20 years old. It was too calm. No, it should be said that it was dead silent. There was no light at all. Occasionally, there would be a flash of playful interest. It meant that he was here to play and didn't want to live a good life in this world. Or rather, he had experienced too many disappointments. He couldn't see the beauty of this world and only felt bored. Chapter 5360. Did they find out about our chat? Mu Xiaoning hadn't expected Tanghua to answer like that. His dark eyes froze for a moment, and he asked, "Did you tell anyone else about this?" "What I mean is, did you share this with your good friend?" Mu Xiaoning added as if he felt that his tone was a little stiff. Tanghua held back her smile and pretended to ask strangely, "Of course not. I'm not that free. Weren't you the one who shared it with others?" "What are you thinking? How could I possibly show this to others?" Mu Xiaoning said in a deep voice. Soon, his tone changed a little, as if he was trying to control himself. "I'm not that kind of person. I believe you," Mu Xiaoning said. "I don't mean to blame you. I know." Mu Xiaoning lowered his hat and continued to swirl his wine glass. "Do you think they're looking at us strangely because we're chatting? I thought so before, but I don't think so now. Do you know why?" Mu Xiaoning didn't look up again. His voice was very low and deep, as if he was being suppressed by the entire sea. "Perhaps they're thinking of some show to mock us? They're always so bored." "That's possible," Tanghua replied. "It seems to be true. We usually don't participate in class activities. Maybe that's the case." Mu Xiaoning didn't say anything else. Instead, he fell silent. Actually, he was a little hesitant about bringing Tanghua to the island. After all, what he had done should be very scary and bloody to her. It might scare her. Actually, he really wanted to bring her up and let her see with her own eyes how scared those people were. He looked up again and saw that Tanghua was already looking elsewhere. He sized her up, gripped his wine glass tightly, and lowered his head. It was about time. She wasn't suitable for such a game at all. Forget it. Let her stay on the cruise ship and have fun. Her life was filled with hope and anticipation. Unlike his, this game would end everyone's lives here, including his. Only she could continue to live. Mu Xiaoning took out his phone and kept moving his fingers. No one knew that he was assigning the next task and how to play with this group of people. In fact, the two of them had only interacted for about a minute. At this moment, Tanghua had already noticed that her classmates were more or less feeling unwell, as if they were about to fall asleep at any moment. At this moment, for some reason, the cruise ship suddenly shook. She saw that the faces of the people around her were filled with fear and disbelief. Many people were shouting, "What's going on?" Dooley, Chen Kangol, and the others looked calm, but the cruise ship still shook violently. At this moment, uncertainty finally appeared on their faces. This kind of shaking is because this hall has been specially set up. In fact, the cruise ship is still as stable as Mount Tai as it moves towards the island. The system explained in Tanghua's ear. Mu Xiaoning probably wants everyone to believe that an accident happened on the cruise ship. Sure enough, the hall began to shake more and more violently. Many people began to vomit from the shaking and then fainted. Seeing that it was about time, Tanghua also fainted. What is Mu Xiaoning doing? He's leaning against the chair. He seems to have fainted, but his eyes are secretly looking at Madam Host. He seems to be very worried about you. Madam Host, believe it or not, if you fall to the ground now, he will probably come over to help you. Forget it. I'm already lying down. It'll be weird if I fall again. Chapter 5361. After an unknown period of time, perhaps because Mu Xiaoning had confirmed that everyone in the hall had fainted, the hall finally stopped shaking. Mu Xiaoning walked over to Tanghua first. After confirming that she was fine, he felt much more at ease. "Boss, what do we do now?" "Throw everyone else on that island except her." Mu Xiaoning's tone was still as low as ever. It was as if an ethereal voice had suddenly appeared in the silent night. It was extremely frightening. "Okay, boss. Do you want to bring her back to her room?" The tall, dark-skinned man had already walked over to Tangua and was about to carry her when he was suddenly stopped by an arm. He looked at Mu shouting in confusion. "Let me do it." "System. Eft. Boss, you look very thin and small." The dark-skinned man was a little hesitant. His boss had given him a lot of money, so of course he had to help his boss settle this small matter beautifully. He could lift an Asian little girl with one finger, but his boss was so thin and small. He felt that he couldn't do it. "System. I can." Mu shouting looked up. His unquestionable gaze made the dark-skinned man take 2 steps back and make an inviting gesture. When he saw Mu shouting carry Tangua, he even flattered him and hurriedly followed behind Mu shouting. Tangua tried her best to hold back her smile when she heard the dark-skinned man's praise. If her tolerance skills were any worse, she might have been discovered. Mu shouting put Tangua back in her room and had no intention of going out again. Instead, he sat on a chair in the room and leaned against the window, looking at the rippling sea outside. "Boss, what's different about her?" The dark-skinned man's sudden question broke Mu shouting's silence. "You talk too much. I'm just asking. Is she the boss's sweetheart?" Mu shouting. "Boss, you'll be suspected if you make so many people disappear at once." Mu shouting. "You're paid to do things. Why do you care about the boss?" "I'm just reminding you kindly." Mu shouting. "Talk less and do more." "Will the boss be with her in the future?" The dark-skinned man wasn't threatened by Mu shouting's words at all. He had taken on many jobs and could understand people like Mu shouting. This little boss wasn't really angry and didn't refute, so he agreed with his answer. "No," Mu shouting said as he looked at the surface of the sea. The big dark-skinned man's curiosity was ignited. "Why? You two look so compatible. Why isn't the boss with her?" "Do you know the story of a drop of ink and a cup of pure water?" The dark-skinned man. "Boss, you can explain. A drop of ink will make a cup of pure water impure. I am that drop of ink." The big black man scratched his head. "Boss, have you heard of the story of a drop of ink and an ocean?" Mu shouting. "A drop of ink is nothing to an ocean. Once the ink enters the ocean, it will turn into seawater. No one will be able to discover its past, and no one will know that it was once ink. You're not suitable for this line of work." Chapter 5362. The big black man said, "Boss, I think you've really misunderstood something. I'm in a legitimate business. At most, I'll evade taxes. I helped you set up this cruise ship, set up these scenes, and the island. I didn't participate in anything else. Earn some hard-earned money and get those people to the island. Then, my mission will be over. What you do next has nothing to do with me. With this generous salary, my wife and children will have a good life." Mu shouting fell silent again. "Old Hay, go out. You're giving me a headache." Old Hay smiled at Mu shouting and hurried out. At the door, he turned back and said, "Boss, that beautiful Asian girl might be your C. Actually, it's better to throw yourself into her arms. Your life will definitely be very exciting. If you talk nonsense again, I'll deduct your money." Old Hay quickly slipped away. Mu shouting felt uncomfortable all over. He shouldn't have let Old Hay speak. His gaze fell on Tangua for a long time. He maintained the same posture and didn't intend to speak. That Old Hay is quite fun. He knows how to talk. The system was amused by the conversation just now. Host, Mu shouting is doubting life. But he won't turn back. Look, he's calming down and thinking about what to do next. He has no intention of living well. Then, host, work harder and assimilate him quickly. Then, he won't let his imagination run wild. I'm guessing that when the time comes, he'll be very glad that he chose the other path. In the middle of the night, the cruise ship arrived at the island. Si Jalao He led some people to move his classmates to the island. The system was scanning the island and telling Tangua the situation there. This place has been set up to look like an abandoned town. It's modern, but no one lives there. It looks especially scary. The host's classmates were thrown to the beach and not brought to the town. According to Mu shouting and Old Hay's conversation, they'll drive the cruise ship away and dock at another island far away from here. The signal on the cruise ship will be temporarily blocked. This is a smart setting. After more than a month, the signal will be restored, and the host will be able to call for help. There was a lot of food on the cruise ship, enough for the host to eat. Old Hay and the others will leave in a speedboat. A month later, they will confirm whether the cruise ship can be found. If not, they will leak the information to the police according to Mu Xiaoning's instructions. You, dear host, Mu Xiaoning has already arranged your escape route. It seems like he doesn't intend to come down from that island. Previously, I also found out that if his death is confirmed, all his assets will be disposed of. In addition, Mu Xiaoning has anonymously sponsored your living expenses and tuition fees starting from next semester. Also, he has contacted a company for you based on your major. After you graduate, there will be a company that will conduct an on-campus recruitment for you. This guy can kill people with a conversation, but he's not careless at all when doing things. He's considered all aspects, which is quite touching. For the sake of his hard work, I won't be jealous of him for the time being. After listening to the system, Tanghua fell silent. She didn't expect Mu Xiaoning to do so many things in such a short time. Originally, Mu Xiaoning wanted to bring you to the island, but he later considered that it might traumatize you, so he gave up on the idea. He didn't admit it, but he was greatly moved by the host. This guy can't be handsome for more than 3 seconds. Chapter 53-63. Madam Host, your classmates have all been moved to the island. Mu Xiaoning has also gone over. He just finished talking to Lao He. Lao He is preparing to bring people to the designated location. Tanghua did not leave the room. She stood by the window. 3 minutes later, the cruise ship started moving and headed in another direction. She planned to wait for Lao He and the others to leave before driving the cruise ship back to prevent the news from leaking. That would not be fun. The system kept staring at the island and kept reporting Mu Xiaoning's situation to her. In that empty town that has been set up, there's a room specially used by Mu Xiaoning. It's considered a secret room. He didn't lock up your classmates and went straight to the secret room. He's currently eating. Mu Xiaoning is now checking the surveillance cameras in the town. He has pointed out all the locations. His secret room is densely packed with small screens that cover almost every location in the town. The system exclaimed in surprise. Furthermore, these surveillance cameras are perfectly hidden. Coupled with the fact that the town is empty and dilapidated, it gives off a desolate and eerie feeling. Therefore, no one would have thought that there might be surveillance cameras everywhere in this town. Not only are there surveillance cameras, but every room in the town is hidden with killing intent. After watching the surveillance cameras, this guy went to check the room again. It seems like he's planning to practice in advance. 3 hours later, the cruise ship was docked beside another island. Lao He did not come in to check on Tanghua's situation. This was because Tanghua's room had been locked. No matter if it was from the outside or from the inside, they would have to use Tanghua's fingerprints. This was a room that Mu Xiaoning had gotten someone to specially decorate when he realized that Tanghua was different. Even if Lao He had professional ethics, he still did not trust Lao He. Everything had been prepared. Madam Host, Lao He and the others have left. Okay, we'll set off in an hour. We should be able to reach there before daybreak. When we left, I already threw down an array disc at the edge of the island. We can park the cruise ship there openly. There's no problem at all. No one will find out. Tanghua did not ask the system to remove the signal jammer on the cruise ship. It was good that the signal was temporarily blocked. Actually, this cruise ship was not the one in her memory. Mu Xiaoning had intercepted the message when Du Li and the others contacted the cruise company. Speaking of which, the cruise company that Du Li and the others had contacted at the beginning was actually Mu Xiaoning's people. The cruise ship returned to the island very quickly. It only took a little more than 2 hours. Tanghua docked the cruise ship next to the island. At this time, the island was surrounded by a formation. The people inside could not see the situation here. She didn't appear directly in the class, but chose to stay in a blind spot. From this position, he could see the students lying on the beach. He didn't know when these people would wake up. Dear host, what do you plan to do when the sun rises? Has he been hiding in the dark, or has he appeared with them? Of course I'm with them. If I hide in the dark, they will subconsciously suspect that I'm the one behind this. Tangwa leaned against a stone slab and said faintly, "If all of us are here, then they will believe that they have experienced something and not someone playing a game." The sun rose. Tangwa heard footsteps and raised her head slightly. She saw a black figure walking toward the beach from afar. Chapter 53-64. Mu Xiaoning walked towards the sleeping students and found an empty space to sit down. He was still wearing the black hat from yesterday, which covered most of his face. The sky gradually brightened, and the morning sun appeared on the sea. The red morning sun made him raise his head slightly to look at it, and it also dyed his face red. It had to be said that the scenery on the sea was very beautiful. It was almost impossible to see such a beautiful scene in the bustling city. Mu Xiaoning glanced at those who had not woken up yet. These people were not worthy of such a beautiful scenery. He thought of Tangwa again. It was a pity that she did not see such a beautiful scene. That guy looks like he's thinking about life. Dear host, what do you think he's thinking when he looked at the beach and then at his classmates? Is he trying to wake them up to enjoy the beautiful scenery? The system asked blankly. Do you think he'll be so kind as to ask these people to enjoy such a beautiful scenery? I don't think so. Then what does he mean? He's probably thinking that this place is so beautiful, and these people are not worthy. The system carefully recalled Mu Xiaoning's expression and suddenly understood. Now that the dear host said so, it seemed to be the case. The students in the class were woken up by the glaring sunlight. They shivered when they woke up because it was too cold. Everyone was stunned when they saw where they were. Where is this? Why did we wake up on the beach? Where's our cruise ship? Why can't we see our cruise ship? There were all kinds of doubts and worried voices in the crowd. They all looked at Dooley and the other main characters who were leading the game. When they saw Dooley sitting there in deep thought, as if she did not know what was going on, they were all dumbfounded. Bai Tian said, "I remember that before we fainted, the cruise ship seemed to be shaking violently. It seemed like it was going to flip over. After that, I lost consciousness." It should be morning now. Wei Yan looked calm, but it could be seen from her eyes that she was still worried. "I don't have my watch and phone with me. My body is dry. It can be deduced that we didn't fall into the water." Tao Jiajia found Qin Kangle in the crowd and hugged his arm tightly. She asked in a low voice, "Kangle, is this trouble caused by you changing your mind at the last minute?" "No," Qin Kangle said with certainty. "I definitely didn't change the plan. If there were any changes on Du Li's side, there's no way he wouldn't tell us. I feel like something's not right. I don't know where this place is, and I don't have my phone with me." Seeing the uncertainty on Qin Kangle's face, Tao Jiajia panicked. Could something have really happened? "Can you find a way to contact the outside world?" Tao Jiajia asked again. Qin Kangle said, "I'll ask if anyone else has a cell phone. Students, all of you have a cell phone on you. Maybe there was an accident. If you have a cell phone, take it out and contact the people outside. Things shouldn't have turned out this way." Now that everything was out of his control, Qin Kangle's first thought was to contact the outside and get out as soon as possible. Even though it was early in the morning and he was bathed in the warm sun, he still felt uneasy. He kept feeling that the surroundings were chilly and gave him a very uncomfortable feeling. Chapter 53-65. Dooley, you didn't change the plan, right? Qin Kangle brought Tao Jiajia to Dooley and asked softly. Dooley's expression was unsettled. "No. Looks like something really happened." Qin Kangle's expression was ugly. "Let's see who has a cell phone first. We need to get in touch with the outside world as soon as possible." As for playing games, they didn't even know where they were now. It was better not to think about it. After looking around, none of the 50 students in the class had a cell phone on them. Not to mention a cell phone, they didn't even have a watch. They only had themselves and the clothes they were wearing to protect themselves from the cold. All of their belongings were not with them. In front of them was an endless sea. Behind them was a forest. They didn't know what was in the forest. It was a sunny day, but it made them feel cold all over. Some people couldn't sit still anymore. They ran to Dooley and Qin Kangle to ask what was going on. Mu Xiaoning was still sitting in the corner. He didn't say a word, as if he didn't care about all this. No one felt that there was anything wrong with his behavior. Dooley and Chun Kangle finally calmed everyone down. Then, they did a head count and realized that Tangwa was missing. They instinctively looked at Mu Xiaoning. Seeing him sitting quietly at the side, they quickly looked elsewhere. Where's Tangwa? Why is she missing? Xiangwan, didn't you play well with Tangwa? Tao Jiejia asked. Xiangwan, we played well, but when everyone fainted, I fainted too. I don't know what happened after that. Xiangwan's expression was ugly. She could tell that this wasn't a joke. Something really happened. Everyone in their class, except for Tangwa, appeared on an unfamiliar island. They didn't have time or communication tools. They couldn't even contact the outside world. Bai Tian suggested, why don't we look for her? She might be nearby. We don't know what's going on now. It's dangerous to be alone. We don't know if there are any wild beasts on this island. Bai Tian looked at Wei Yin and Tao Jiejia, feeling regretful. If she had objected to this from the start and stopped them from playing games, this might not have happened. Let's look around then. Du Li's words were more authoritative. Following his words, the students formed groups of 2 or 3 and began to search the surroundings. Tangwa did not intend to show up now, so she went into hiding. These people didn't really want to look for her, so they weren't very careful. Naturally, they didn't find where she was hiding. Mu Xiaoning also walked around casually. He didn't look for anyone at all. After all, according to his plan, Tangwa was on the cruise ship at this time. Perhaps he had already woken up. She might panic when she realized that all her classmates were gone, but he had left a lot of food on the cruise ship. There was even a refrigerator on the cruise ship. It could last them for a few years, let alone a month. After a short period of panic, she would definitely calm down. After all, she was such a smart person. Perhaps a month on the island would be very long and boring, but it was better than staying on this island that was about to be stained with blood. He hoped that in the future, her life would be bright, and she would realize all her dreams and live happily. Chapter 5366. I didn't find her. I didn't find her here either. Could something have happened to her? We don't have any communication tools. We can't keep looking like this. We've looked everywhere we can find. There's nothing we can do if there's no one. Why don't we go somewhere else to take a look? Dooley took this suggestion and gathered everyone. Although he was still a little unsettled and panicked, he looked calm on the surface. He looked much calmer than the others. He was also a little annoyed. If he had known that such an accident would happen, he wouldn't have led this game. This place was so far away from the mainland, and they didn't have any communication tools. If the people outside couldn't find them, it would really be over. Dooley had never really been to this island. He had contacted someone to help him set up the island. He even asked the other party to take a picture for him. How would he know that this island was the one he had chosen in the beginning? Of course, this place had already been cleaned up by Mu Xiaoning's people. It had completely changed. Even if he had been here before, he might not remember. There's a road here that leads into the forest. There might be people here. Wei Yin walked in front. Let's go over and take a look. Maybe we can find something. Tangwa was in the corner, watching everyone walk towards the forest. After a while, they all disappeared into the forest. Then, she followed them. With the help of the system, she could temporarily block the surveillance cameras at the place she passed by. She wasn't afraid that Mu Xiaoning would suddenly see her. About 10 minutes later, the dilapidated and desolate town appeared in front of everyone. In terms of architectural style, the houses in the town were very beautiful. However, when no one lived in such houses and it was empty, it looked a little eerie and scary. The students standing outside the town weren't the only ones who were afraid. Even the male students couldn't resist the feeling of emptiness, let alone the female students. In terms of architectural style, these buildings should be in the style of the Republic of China. From the damage on the outside, I can tell that no one has lived here for a long time. The water in the river has dried up. However, there's one thing that's good. At least there's a place to shelter from the wind and rain. Wei Yin said, no matter what, let's go in and take a look first. Now that there was only one road, everyone could only walk in and take a look. Mu Xiaoning had spent a lot of money to build this place. Ever since he was reborn, he had been preparing for this day. Of course, he would ask people to do this seriously. He had drawn the map of the town himself. In order to make the town more realistic, he had the patience to wait until today. To be honest, it was a bit of a waste for them to return to the small town that they had spent so many years building. However, it was worth it to be able to see their terrified faces before they died. After spending 3 hours, everyone had walked around the town. Although the outside was a little shabby and there was a lot of dust inside, with a little cleaning, it was still habitable. There's no way to get in touch with the outside world for now. Let's stay here for now. This town was built in the style of the Republic of China, but from the traces of life, there should have been people living here decades ago. Some things should still be in use. The water in the streams and ponds have all dried up, so we can only get seawater to use a large amount of water. Dooley said, fortunately, there's still a well that hasn't dried up yet. If you want to drink, you can drink from there. Another piece of good news is that a student said that he still has a lighter on him. Like to wear fast. Supporting female lead, calm down, please collect. Wear fast. Supporting female lead, calm down. Fight bar updates the fastest. Chapter 5367. Hearing that there was a lighter, the students in the class let out a sigh of relief. As long as there was a fire, their survival would not be so difficult. However, they still hoped that the people outside would discover them as soon as possible. They did not want to stay in this godforsaken place for even a day. There are many rooms here. Whether you choose to live in groups or alone depends on the person. However, I suggest that 2 or 3 people stay in a room, Dooley said. As for food, they could only go out to pick wild vegetables and fruits. Hopefully, they would be lucky. They were not hungry for the time being, so they went to choose their rooms. Some chose to stay in groups of 2 or 3, while others chose to stay alone. Of course, Mu Xiaoning chose a single room. The location he chose was naturally very convenient for him to do things when the time came. The students all knew that he did not fit in, so they had no intention of staying with him. Besides, it was not convenient to stay with Mu Xiaoning. They still wanted to discuss some things. If Mu Xiaoning heard them, it would not be good. There were still students who did not believe that an accident had happened. They wanted to find an opportunity to ask Dooley and Chinkangle in private if the plan had changed, and they had to participate in this game personally. However, after finding an opportunity to ask, they realized that this was really an accident and not a change of plan. This student's heart turned cold. Many people regretted it. If they had known that something like this would happen, they would not have come to join in the fun. Now, they could not see Tanghua and Mu Xiaoning's reaction. Instead, they had been tormented. After working for half a day, the room was barely habitable. After not eating for so long, everyone was hungry. They began to look for wild vegetables and fruits to eat. Of course, it was difficult to swallow. This meal made even more people regret participating in this boring game. Mu Xiaoning sat in the corner, still wearing the black hat. Seeing everyone's faces scrunched up and their regretful expressions, the corners of his lips curled up. Were these people regretting it? Unfortunately, they only regretted it because they had suffered so much for themselves. If it were not for his design, they would only be spectators, watching him and Tanghua's monkeys. At that time, they would not regret it at all. Sleeping in a dirty house and eating wild vegetables and fruits was only the beginning. It was also the smallest difficulty they encountered. Mu Xiaoning chewed on a sour fruit, as if he was tasting the most delicious food in the world. They had been tired for a day. Why not let them rest for a day, and he would start tomorrow night? There weren't many students like him who cared about their classmates' emotions. The first day passed peacefully. Because there were people living in the town, when the students woke up in the morning, they all felt that the place had become magnificent. They weren't in such a hurry for the time being. After all, they wouldn't be exposed to the wind and sun, and they wouldn't be hungry either. It seemed pretty good to have a different experience. Many students organized themselves and decided to explore. They wanted to take a closer look at what was left behind in this small town. This was Mu Xiaoning's main purpose in building this small town. If he could pique everyone's curiosity, it would be easier for him to make his move. Mu Xiaoning's first target was Xiang Wan. At this moment, Xiang Wan was exploring with another girl and had already arrived at the town stage. In the past, I've only seen such a stage on TV. I didn't expect to see it with my own eyes one day. Xiangwan, who was standing at the gate, said to the girl beside her, "Let's go in and take a look. Maybe we can find something fun." Xiangwan said this because this morning, when she was putting on her shoes, she picked up a silver dollar on the ground. If he took it out, it should be worth some money. There must be a dressing table inside the stage. Maybe he could pick up some other good stuff, which would be priceless. Chapter 53:68. After Xiangwan and the girl walked into the stage, they were instantly attracted by the display inside and the vicissitudes of time. However, they didn't know that the door behind them had already quietly closed. Xiangwan had her own thoughts. She said to the girl, "This place is so big. I'll take a look over there first. When we're going out, let's call each other." The girl agreed. She was interested in the layout of the stage and planned to take a look. The stage was made of wooden flooring. Some parts had collapsed. Afraid of danger, she didn't dare to step on them and just looked around at the edge. Mu Shouting had spent a lot of money and effort to build this town. For this, he had even read a lot of information. There were even some things that looked old. He had gotten people to search all over the country for them. He felt that he hadn't been prepared enough the last time. Although everyone else had died except for Bai Tian, it was only 3 days and 3 days. However, it was resolved within 3 days. The students probably didn't get to enjoy the fear and excitement that came with it. This time, he already had previous experience and could do it more meticulously. He wanted to use half a month or a month to make full use of all the props here, so that the students could have an unforgettable experience before they died. Mu Shouting's target this time was Xiangwan. He had his eyes on her since the beginning. He ignored the female student who was watching the stage outside and walked in from another direction. Xiangwan checked the dressing room. She was very interested when she saw the dusty dressing table. There were some things on it that she couldn't see clearly. She didn't expect to find these things on her first trip to the town. She could guarantee that these things could definitely be sold for some money. Moreover, the gold and silver jewelry in the stage weren't considered cultural relics that couldn't be sold. It would be best if she could find some gold and silver jewelry. It would be easier to sell them. However, she didn't know that Mu Shouting was already hiding in a corner of the room. He stood there quietly and watched her excitedly pick up the things on the dressing table to wipe the dust. He had set up some attractive things in every part of the town. However, these good things were accompanied by danger. When the people inside touched the danger, they would be doomed. They would be like fish on a chopping board, at his mercy. At that moment, Mu Shouting had changed his clothes, put on a wig and a mask. He looked like a person who had just stepped off the stage. When Xiangwan reached out to take a pearl, she heard a series of noises. Before she could react, she was suddenly surrounded by the various mechanisms on the dressing table. Her hands and ankles were immobilized. She subconsciously wanted to scream, but her mouth was stuffed with a piece of cloth. She couldn't turn around yet because she felt something sharp and cold pressing against her throat. Coincidentally, there was a very clear mirror on the dressing table. Through the mirror, she saw that she was standing with difficulty and saw what was pressed against her neck. It was a knife protruding from the dressing table. Right now, she was standing on tiptoe and was fixed in place. As long as she didn't stand on tiptoe, she wouldn't have the strength to support herself. Then, the sharp dagger would stab into her neck. However, her hands were fixed in place and her mouth was covered. Her eyes widened as she stared at the reflection in the mirror. Chapter 53:69. Yes, she had already seen the overdressed Mu Shouting. Tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes as she begged Mu Shouting pitifully. She kept shaking her head, as if saying that she didn't do it on purpose. She didn't want these things anymore and wouldn't touch them again. She hoped that Mu Shouting would forgive her. Xiangwan was really afraid. She suspected that the figure in the mirror was the soul of the owner of this dressing table. She had only appeared because she had touched the other party's things. Mu Shouting ignored Xiangwan's pleas for help. Instead, he brewed tea. His movements were smooth as flowing water, causing Xiangwan to become more and more terrified. Her heartbeat was like the sound of flowing water, beating extremely quickly. She struggled desperately, shook her head, and begged. Mu Shouting was indifferent. He actually didn't like to use sharp weapons to stab these people's bodies, nor did he want to be splashed with dirty blood. Therefore, he had set up such a trap. He had only taken advantage of Xiang Wen's desire to take advantage of her and threw a silver dollar into her room. That thing was indeed a real one. It was his grandfather's collection. In the end, she really came. He had already planned it beforehand. This time, he wouldn't do it himself if he could. He would quietly watch from the side as these people couldn't hold on and died. He would watch as they fell from fear into despair. Mu Xiaoning had already brewed the tea and was drinking it. Xiang Wen cried and let out a frightened whimper, especially when she felt the sharp knife sinking into her throat a little. Her tears couldn't stop flowing. Mu Xiaoning took a sip of tea and planned to open his mouth and sing. He knew this because his grandfather liked these things when he was very young and would lead him to sing. Many years ago, his grandfather had brought his entire family to seek refuge. It was only in his father's generation that he found a chance to return. His grandfather's greatest regret was that he had never been able to return to his hometown. When Xiang Wen heard the ethereal voice, she was so frightened that she trembled. She even couldn't help but pee. Her face turned pale from fright. She stared at the person in the mirror who kept jumping around. Especially when the other party's casual gaze landed on her, it made her scalp turn cold. She understood that this ghost wanted to watch her die. She regretted it too much. Why did she have to be greedy? If she hadn't been greedy, she definitely wouldn't have waited for death here. Tanghua hid in the dark and watched Mu Xiaoning slowly torment Xiang Wen. She had no intention of going out for the time being. She could tell that Mu Xiaoning wanted to see Xiang Wen unable to hold on and stab the sharp knife into her neck. This person was quite playful. Xiang Wen was so scared by him that she peed her pants. The room had been closed, so the girl outside couldn't come in. Besides, the girl had been attracted by the architectural style outside and couldn't remember Xiang Wen for a while. Even if he remembered her, she would probably leave on her own if no one answered his call. After an unknown period of time, Mu Xiaoning had already stopped. Out of nowhere, he produced a book, one of those old-fashioned brochures, and began to read it with great interest. However, when the system scanned it, it saw that it was a phone screen. There was even a picture of Tanghua on the screen. "Host, he must be missing you," the system secretly said. "This guy is actually looking at you and smiling. He's even touching your face. This isn't just liking you. It's gradually turning into infatuation. I wonder if he regrets making such a plan now and giving up the chance to be with you." Chapter 5370. 2 hours passed unknowingly. Xiang Wen, who was tiptoeing, gradually couldn't hold on any longer. Her tears, sweat, and urine on the ground mixed together, leaving a terrible smell in the room. She had never been in such a sorry state since she was young. However, the only thing on her mind now was how to survive. She was afraid, too afraid. As long as she lost her balance, she would be pierced by the sharp knife against her neck. She could already feel that her neck was about to be cut. She secretly looked at Mu Xiaoning, who had been reading in the mirror, and started crying again, hoping that he would pay attention to her. She really knew that she was wrong. Afraid? Hearing Mu Xiaoning finally speak, Xiang Wen wanted to nod, but she remembered the knife against her neck. She didn't dare, and could only whimper in response. "It's good that you're afraid. This is what happens to greedy traders." Xiang Wen wanted to say something to defend herself, but unfortunately, her mouth was stuffed and she didn't have the chance to say anything. She thought that Mu Xiaoning had been harmed by someone before. She took the other party's things and reminded this ghost of his former enemy, so he hated her so much. She really wanted to explain that she was just a passerby and not that greedy trader. However, she didn't know that Mu Xiaoning was talking about her betrayal of Tanghua. In Mu Xiaoning's opinion, Xiang Wen was a greedy trader when she led and persuaded Tanghua to attend the class reunion. Actually, he didn't start with Xiang Wen last time. As for the water, he had already forgotten. At that time, he only confirmed the people who came and then got rid of them one by one. Actually, he really hated it. If he touched their bright red but smelly blood and got it all over his body, even the sea might despise him. Mu Xiaoning laughed out loud. His voice was terrifying. Hearing this, Xiang Wenjin trembled and fainted from fright. Xiang Wen, who had fainted, could no longer support her toes. Her neck couldn't help but press against the sharp knife. Mu Xiaoning didn't even raise his head. He merely glanced at her before lowering his head to read the book in his hand. In fact, he was looking at his phone. On the screen, it was still Tangwa's photo. The corners of his mouth curled up and his eyes were slightly closed. It was as if he had completed something that gave him a sense of accomplishment. However, the next moment, he felt that something was wrong in the room. He quickly opened his eyes and saw Tangwa standing beside Xiangwan. The sharp knife did not pierce Xiangwan's neck. She was saved by Tangwa. However, her face was pale. She was probably traumatized. Mu Xiaoning and Tangwa's eyes met. He almost lost control of his expression. Why was she here? Didn't he tell Blackie to dock the cruise ship at another cruise ship? Just when he was a little flustered, he suddenly remembered that he was wearing a mask. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. While Tangwa wasn't paying attention, Mu Xiaoning turned around and ran away. He flipped over the window seat and took his phone with him. However, the book that was used as a cover was left on the table. Tangwa had no intention of chasing after him. She removed the knife that was pressed against Xiangwen's neck, but she had no intention of removing the mechanism. After all, she didn't know what was going on with the mechanism. It was better to let others think of a way. Seeing that Xiangwan was still unconscious, she quickly went over and put the book that Mu Xiaoning had left behind into the system space. This person is not clean. What if someone finds out? This book and this tea set have his fingerprints on them. He didn't even know that he was wearing gloves. System. Haha. Chapter 5371. After dealing with the scene, Tangwa went to call for help. On the other hand, Mu Xiaoning had already returned to his secret room. He quickly changed his clothes and returned to the room that everyone knew about. If not for the fact that he was afraid of counting the people, he really wanted to go to the surveillance room to see how Tangwa had gotten in. Could it be that old He had broken his promise and did not follow his instructions? Or did something go wrong somewhere else? No matter what, he would not let this group of people off. Since things had already started, there was no turning back. It was impossible for him to watch them continue to live carefreely. Hell was more suitable for these children who liked to play in the human world and treated themselves as gods. Tangwa ran out first. She wanted to call the girl outside, but the girl had already gone to another pavilion. She could only go somewhere else to look for her. After a while, she found Bai Tian. When Bai Tian saw Tangwa, she was very surprised. Tangwa, are you all right? Tangwa saw Bai Tian heave a sigh of relief and replied, I'm fine. When I woke up, I was on the beach and didn't see you guys. Later, I passed through a forest and found this place. Then, I heard a strange sound and went to the stage. In the end, I found Xiangwan. Something happened to Xiangwan. Hearing that something happened to Xiangwan, Bai Tian forgot to think about where Tangwa had gone and quickly asked what had happened. In a few words, Tangwa told him about how she saw Xiangwan being tied up by the mechanism and how she almost died. Bai Tian said, Then let's hurry over and take a look. Call some people over. That mechanism is very difficult to deal with, Tangwa suggested. Bai Tian nodded. Yes. Call a few male students over. But they're not in their rooms now. They want to play around. We won't be able to find them for a while. We can only try shouting, but some places here are very soundproof. They might not be able to hear us. Fortunately, there were students nearby who rushed over when they heard Bai Tian's voice. Knowing that something had happened to Xiangwan, they quickly followed to check on the situation. When they walked into the room, they couldn't help but frown. The mixture of sweat and urine was really too smelly. Two of the students couldn't help but vomit. They really couldn't stand the smell and hurriedly rushed out. When they saw Xiangwen's sorry state, everyone present was in disbelief. They found some water and splashed it on Xiangwen to wake her up. Xiangwen woke up slowly and shouted, I don't want to die. I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken your things. I won't take it. I really won't take it. Seeing Xiangwen on the verge of breaking down, the few of them tried to comfort her, but they found that it was useless. They could only wait for her to cry. After a while, Xiangwen realized that she had been saved and started crying again. After that, a few male students helped to dismantle the mechanism. The mechanism was made of solid wood, and there were no screws. It was connected by tenon and was very sturdy. If they couldn't find the key points, they really didn't know how to dismantle the mechanism. Of course, Tangwa knew this, but she didn't intend to say anything. In everyone's eyes, she probably wouldn't. At this time, everyone was busy with the mechanism and temporarily forgot to ask why Tangwa suddenly appeared. Of course, they did not think that this matter was caused by Tangwa. She was so poor. How could she have such ability? Most people wouldn't be able to make such a simple dressing table with a mechanism. I can't get it off. If you have a knife, it will be much easier. You can cut it with a knife. Why don't we go out and look for a knife? Chapter 5372. Everyone agreed with this suggestion. Just as everyone was about to leave, Xiangwen hurriedly stopped them. Don't leave me alone. I'm scared. She instinctively looked at Tangwa, but she did not turn back. Instead, she said, then let's leave 2 classmates here to watch. The rest of you, hurry up and find a knife. If you can't find one, then a sharp stone will do. Hearing that Tangwa was busy with her matter, Xiangwen wanted to ask her to stay and accompany her, but she swallowed her words. The 2 classmates who stayed behind could not stay in the room. Let's go outside and open the window. We can see you. Xiangwen could hear the disdain in their words, but she did not dare to say anything for the time being. She was really afraid that these people would leave her alone and that Ghost would appear again to take her life. Thinking of the previous scene, she trembled all over. Only then did she remember her embarrassment. Her classmates only knew that she was so scared that she peed, but they did not know that she even pooped. It was winter, and she did not have any clothes to change into. Her crotch was very uncomfortable, and this made her break down. This time, she was practically dying. She swore that she would not touch anything in the future. Everyone knew about Xiangwen's experience. Even Mu Xiaoning came over with the others to take a look. Seeing Xiangwen break down, he suddenly felt that it was not a bad thing that she was not dead. There were some accidents this time, but it did not dispel his thoughts. What surprised him was that the tea set and the book he had left behind were gone. He did not have time to return to the surveillance room for the time being. He did not know what was going on, but when he found that no one noticed that something was wrong with him, he quietly walked out of the room. He had originally planned to create an accident of his own death if someone suspected him midway. Then, he would never show his face in front of others again so that he could take action better. Of course, it was more convenient to adjust the plan with them since it had not reached that stage. He was not interested in Xiangwen for the time being. Who was the next one? The sky was almost dark. Someone finally found a knife. It was very blunt, but it was better than nothing. After spending a few more hours, they finally managed to rescue the exhausted Xiangwen from the trap. Xiangwen leaned on the dressing table weakly and almost fell. She did not care about arguing. No one came to help her. She just wanted to leave the room immediately. At this moment, the others turned to look at Tangwa and asked her what was going on. Tangwa gave the speech she had prepared beforehand. At this time, Wei Yin questioned, "Then why did you go directly to that room?" Wei Yin still felt that something was wrong. In fact, she didn't think that this matter had anything to do with Tangwa. She just felt that there were some suspicious points. There's a path behind the stage that leads to the forest. I was there at the time and heard some movement here. It seemed like someone was singing. Wei Yin couldn't tell that Tangwa was lying, so she just nodded. Bai Tian tugged at her. "Are you suspecting Tangwa? That's impossible. How many people know how to use that mechanism?" "I didn't suspect her. I just wanted to know where she came from," Wei Yin replied. Xiangwen had already cleaned herself up. Fortunately, there was some cloth in the room. Although there was a smell, it could still be used. After she was done, she told her classmates about her experience. When they heard that this place was haunted, everyone was in disbelief. How is that possible? It's true. The dressing table should be that ghost's. I suspect that I messed with the things on it and attracted the ghost out. Xiangwen then added, I think it's better not to touch the things here. Otherwise, you'll be stained by something unclean. Class rep, when can we get out? Xiangwen looked at Dooley and asked expectantly. Dooley was silent. We don't have any communication devices outside. We can only wait for them to discover that we're missing. Disappointment flashed in Xiang Wen's eyes. She couldn't help but hug her arms. She looked at Tang Guo's position and nudged Tang Guo, but she found that Tang Guo's expression was very cold. She felt guilty. Thinking of the greedy traitor that the ghost said, she suddenly realized that she fit the description very well. She widened her eyes and then looked at Tang Guo again. However, she found that Tang Guo's figure was much smaller than the ghost's. She quickly shook her head. Tang Guo, how did you fall into another place alone? Xiang Wen asked in a low voice. Tang Guo looked back at her and said, everyone doesn't know what's going on. How would I know? Tang Guo, did I offend you? I feel that you're not treating me right. Xiang Wen asked tentatively. Digression. Chapter 53-73. Tang Guo didn't answer Xiang Wen's question immediately. She just gave her a deep look. Xiang Wen felt very guilty. She regretted asking this question. She pulled her clothes and thought of the current situation. It was better not to have a conflict with Tang Guo. She didn't want to continue the topic. Forget it. You're probably tired. By the way, do you have a cell phone with you? I don't know what kind of place this is. When will the people outside know that we're missing? I really want to go out. If I had known, I wouldn't have come to the party. No matter how good the cruise is, it can't compare to freedom. It's so hard to live without a cell phone. If the people outside don't find us, it will be very difficult for us to survive here. Thinking of the strangeness of this place and the fact that they could only eat some wild vegetables every day, Xiang Wen became more and more afraid. In particular, there were unclean things here. If they met again, would they be so lucky to be alive? The more she thought about it, the more her eyes turned red. Tears began to fall from her eyes. She thought that Tang Guo would comfort her. According to their previous relationship, when she was sad, Tang Guo would always find a way to make her happy. Even if she didn't buy small gifts, she would say some comforting words. However, Tang Guo just sat next to the fire and stared at it without saying a word, which made her very uncomfortable. They had only been separated for a day or two. Why did Tang Guo suddenly become so strange? She thought about it carefully. She didn't do anything to offend her, so she was really confused. Do you also feel uncomfortable being left here? At this time, Tang Guo spoke. I almost didn't want to come at first. Why did you persuade me to come? If this accident didn't happen, I would be the one who stayed on the deserted island and mistakenly thought that I had transmigrated. Xiang Wen's eyes widened and her face instantly turned pale. She wanted to ask Tang Guo why she knew this, but she couldn't make a sound. Xiang Wen wanted to say no, but when she saw Tang Guo's penetrating eyes, she closed her mouth tightly. I overheard it by accident. Xiang Wen didn't doubt Tang Guo's simple explanation. She thought that since so many students in the class knew about this matter, it was inevitable that they would talk about it in some corner where Tang Guo was not around. It was not strange that Tang Guo happened to hear it. Xiang Wen pulled down the scarf around her neck and covered half of her face. She didn't know what to say now, because Tang Guo's appearance looked cold and unapproachable. She originally wanted to say that she was going to be with Tang Guo, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. I've heard that you've been bribed by Du Li, Tang Guo said again. I used to think that you weren't that kind of person. I didn't ask you about it because I thought that we were good friends and shouldn't be suspected by others. You've disappointed me. For some reason, Xiang Wen was very flustered. She wanted to explain, but Tang Guo had already stood up and walked away from the bonfire in the yard. She walked into a room that happened to be adjacent to Mu Xiaoning's room. Xiang Wen sat on the spot and could only watch Tang Guo's back as she disappeared into the corridor. She didn't know who had discussed this matter and let Tang Guo know. Taking advantage of the fact that Du Li was not asleep, Xiang Wen moved to his side and told him about it. Du Li didn't have much of a reaction. Now that everyone was in a difficult situation, what happened before was just a small problem. Even if Tang Guo wasn't satisfied with them, she wouldn't do anything. The most important thing now is to wait for the outside world to find us. Don't think too much about anything else. Transmigration. Female supporting lead, Calm Down will continue to be updated in the new bookstore. There are no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend the new bookstore. Like Transmigration. Female supporting lead, Calm Down. Please bookmark Transmigration. Female supporting lead, Calm Down. New bookstore updates the fastest. Chapter 5374. But she knows the truth and ignores me now, Xiangwen said in annoyance. Actually, nothing happened. She made it seem like she wanted to cut ties with me. She has such a weird temper. We were just playing a small game and didn't really want to do anything to her. She would still go out when the time came. Now that the game hasn't been completed and everyone is in trouble, she wants to cut ties with me. Dooley wasn't interested in the friendship between Xiangwan and Tanghua. He was still annoyed. He didn't know when the people outside would find out that they were in trouble. Even if they knew that they were missing, they might not be able to find them in time. They could only rely on the weeds here. It was okay for 10 days to half a month, but who knew what would happen if they stayed here for a long time? Xiangwan, go back and rest first. Xiangwan felt that Dooley was a little angry and didn't dare to say more. She hurried back to her room. Jia and I went to the beach to observe during the day and didn't find any traces of a ship. We also checked the beach and couldn't find any traces of human life. Maybe something happened to this town a few decades ago, and everyone here has either left or died. Chun Kangol rubbed his forehead. Dooley, this is very troublesome. I plan to carve a distress signal on the branches starting tomorrow and see if the branches will float out and let the people outside find us. Dooley, that's the only way now. If I had known, I wouldn't have played this game, Tao Jia said. She was actually very scared. Dooley and Chun Kangol could only wait, which meant that there was really no other way out. She had waited at the beach for a whole day, but no ship passed by. The more she waited, the more desperate she felt. If the people outside couldn't find them, then she would have to survive here and live a savage life. What was the point of living like this, even if Chun Kangol was a rich second-generation heir? Dooley was actually a little annoyed. Yes, if he had known, he wouldn't have played this game. Who knew that something like this would happen? Kangol, what do you think is going on? Why did we suddenly appear on the island? Where did the cruise ship go? Is this man-made or something else? Chun Kangol frowned. If it's man-made, why would the other party do this? Like us, want to play a game? Tao Jia immediately said. Chun Kangol and Dooley looked at each other. It was indeed possible, but who would play such a boring game? As for this small town, it was obvious that no one had lived in it for decades. They were all knowledgeable people. The iconic things inside were really from that era. What if it's not man-made? Dooley asked again. Is there really such a strange thing in this world? The answer, of course, was that he did not know. Their conversation was completely overheard by Tanghua. It was obvious that Mu Xiaoning wasn't trying to transmigrate. He just wanted to bring them to an uninhabited island and create an opportunity to kill them. Mu Xiaoning even pretended to be a ghost once, most likely to use this kind of supernatural event to scare them and make them die in fear. Of course, this group of people were not fools. Now that she was here, she would definitely not let this group of people die. In that case, Mu Xiaoning's plan would basically be foiled, and it would be much more difficult for him to carry out his plan. She was not here to add to the trouble. She had to think of a way to make Mu Xiaoning feel more relaxed. It seemed like he had to release some paper puppets to play with. Chapter 5375. Not only did she have to release the paper puppets to play with, but she also had to set up some small arrays. With so many people around, it would be better to play slowly. Tanghua took out a handful of paper puppets from the system space. There were dozens of paper human puppets in the room. This time, the paper man puppet did not take on the appearance of a human. She dripped a drop of blood onto the paper puppets, then silently recited the incantation to make them change into the forms she had arranged. Some of them turned into clothes, some turned into snakes, insects, rats, and ants. Some turned into larger paper dolls, and some turned into cloth dolls. Just these things alone were enough to make her classmates piss their pants in fear. After the arrangements were made, she let the paper puppets hide in a corner for the time being. Since no one was rummaging through the house, they would naturally go out to play when they were needed. After you're done, you can change your appearance to live in this world as long as you don't do evil. As soon as Tanghua said this, the paper puppets all cheered. Then she gave them some pills. When the time comes, don't kill anyone. When you see that they can't take it anymore, give them a pill before continuing to play. The paper puppets rolled up and hid the pills Tanghua gave them. Tangwa looked at the clothes hanging in the corner. You'll be called Xiao Yi. Every night is your time to play. You can play however you want. You can go to their room or float outside. Before many people notice you, just quickly slip away. You can do it, but don't kill anyone. The clothes swayed happily from side to side. After receiving Tangwa's order, it floated out of the window. After a while, the system reported to Tangwa, "Dear host, your Xiaoyi scared a guy who was peeing outside so much that he didn't even pull up his pants. He shouted and ran to a place with people." Tangwa had already laid down and was preparing to sleep. It was time to sleep, otherwise she would have dark circles tomorrow. Before going to sleep, she asked, "What's Mu Xiaoning doing?" He went back to his secret room. Most likely, he's planning how to play tomorrow. Just now, he confirmed that tomorrow's targets are Tao Jujia and Qin Kangol. These two people will go to the beach tomorrow to look for tree branches to carve words. Mu Xiaoning looked at the surveillance footage and decided to choose them. The system had processed the surveillance footage of Tangwa's existence, so Mu Xiaoning could only see that Tangwa had entered from behind the stage and nothing else. This time, Tangwa really fell asleep. Before dawn, she took something to eat in the system space. After eating, she went out to look for wild vegetables with the others. Her performance was ordinary, so no one paid much attention to her. Now, not many people would look at her. Everyone was thinking about when they would be able to leave. After eating wild vegetables for 2 days in a row, they couldn't bear it any longer. Knowing that Qin Kangol was going to the beach, someone suggested that they go to the beach to see if they could pick up crabs, fish, and prawns to improve their meals. As a result, Qin Kangol's group had 3 more male classmates. But when they walked into the forest, Qin Kangol said, "You guys go ahead first. Jia, and I will find some branches to carve some words on. When the time comes, we'll put all these branches into the sea. Hopefully, they will float outside." "Okay, be careful. Last night, I heard that there were clothes floating around. This place is really not clean." The only person who saw Xiao Yi was the student who was peeing outside. Many people were skeptical about this matter. Qin Kangol didn't believe in supernatural powers. He still felt that someone had arranged this, so he didn't listen. Chapter 5376. Dear host, Mu Xiaoning really put in a lot of effort to prepare this. The forest is filled with traps that are under his control. Tao Jujia and Qin Kangol are going to be tortured this time. I checked the trap just now. It feels like a pair of disassembled items are still a pair. Tangwa didn't know what kind of trap it was. She had already found an excellent place to hide. She would know what kind of trap it was in a while. Besides, Qin Kangol and Tao Jujia were already in the forest. They planned to break some branches. Their mission today was to carve many words on the branches and let them float out with the sea. The two unknowingly walked a little too deep. As they spoke, they didn't notice where they were and stepped on the trap that Mu Xiaoning had arranged. At that moment, Qin Kangol's body was sinking. He instinctively grabbed Tao Jujia's hand, but he didn't expect Tao Jujia's situation to be the opposite. She stepped on a rope and was hung on a tree. Qin Kangol lost his balance and fell. He thought that he would fall flat on his face, but he didn't expect that halfway down. He felt a pulling force at his ankle. He looked over with difficulty and found that there was a rope around his ankle. In the end, there were ropes around both of their ankles. One was hanging upside down in the pit, while the other was hanging upside down on a tree. They were both using the same rope. This pit was very big. Not only was it big, it was also a little deep. What made Qin Kangol even more fearful was that there were actually some sharpened wooden sticks in the pit. Looking at these wooden sticks, his scalp turned cold. If he fell down like this, he would definitely die. "Jujia, pull me up." Tao Jujia was a little dizzy from the torment. She calmed down when she heard Qin Kangol's voice. "Kangol, the rope is wrapped around my leg. I can't pull you up. Kangol, don't move. If you move again, I will be pierced by the sharp things above." It turned out that the top of the pit was also covered with sharpened wooden sticks. She didn't know who did it, but she knew that if she went up a little, those things would definitely pierce her body. Fortunately, there was a tree beside her. She could hug the tree tightly and wouldn't be pulled up by Qin Kangol's weight. Actually, She didn't know that Mu Xiaoning had deliberately designed this so that the two of them could have a chance to communicate. Then call for help. At this moment, Chun Kangol was already sweating profusely. Because he was hanging upside down, he couldn't raise his voice and shouted very softly. Tao Jiejia was about the same as him. In such a position, it was tiring to shout for a while, and his voice was getting softer and softer. Konglu, this won't work. Chun Kangol also knew. Let's shout again. He knew that they had fallen into a desperate situation. As long as Tao Jiejia could land on the ground, he could also be saved. If he fell into this pit, Tao Jiejia would also die. Who was it that came up with such a vicious trap? If he had known earlier, he would have been more careful and not walked so deep. However, the trees outside were very tall, and there was no way to find the little tree, so they could only walk inside. He felt that this trap must have been from hunting in the past. At this moment, Tao Jiejia's voice sounded. Konglu, I heard someone coming. We've been saved. Chun Kangol couldn't see above and was very happy. Quick, call for help. Don't miss it. Help! Tao Jiejia shouted. Hearing the sound of walking in the grass gradually coming from afar, she calmed down and hurriedly looked around. Not long after, under the glossy tree, a very thickly dressed person came. His face was covered. Chapter 5377. Tao Jiejia was stunned when she saw the man's attire. Her joy slowly dissipated as her scalp turned cold. The man had a very long knife in his hand. He had already walked to the pit and was looking inside. Chun Kangol felt it and hurriedly supported himself. He looked up and saw a masked man. The words of help were stuck in his throat. His intuition told him that this person wasn't a kind person. In less than 10 seconds, he still called for help. Either both of you die or only one can live. The hoarse voice made the two of them suck in a breath of cold air. Only one of them could survive. In their minds, they subconsciously wanted to survive. Here's the knife. Under Chun Kangol's incredulous expression, he heard Mu Xiaoning hand the knife to Tao Jiejia. At the same time, a strange voice sounded. Cut the rope around your ankle and you'll be saved. Tao Jiejia's hand trembled subconsciously, but she still gripped the knife tightly. The tree was very smooth. She had tried it just now. She couldn't bend her body to untie the rope with her strength. Furthermore, she had been hanging for so long and shouting for so long. Even holding the knife was a little difficult for her. In order to lose weight, she had been on a diet and didn't have much strength. If not for her tight grip on the tree trunk, with her weight, she would have been pulled up and stabbed to death by the sharp wooden branches. After Mu Xiaoning handed the knife, he didn't stay on the spot. After all, no one knew what would happen. In their positions, their cries for help couldn't travel far. After shouting for a while, they would run out of strength. Anyway, one of them would die. When the two of them didn't return, someone would come looking for them. They wouldn't be able to find this place for a while. The person who would die should be Chun Kangol. One of the main people who organized the game was Chun Kangol. He deserved it. The masked man had already left. Tao Jiejia was more silent than before. This was because she was about to be saved. As long as she used the long knife to cut the rope, she would at most suffer minor injuries from the fall. If she didn't cut it, she didn't know how long she would be hanging here. Jiejia? What are you thinking? At this moment, Chun Kangol was actually terrified. This was the first time his life was controlled by a woman. It would be strange if he didn't panic. He knew that Tao Jiejia liked his money. He didn't mind. After all, Tao Jiejia was very beautiful. He had never thought of marrying Tao Jiejia. What he liked about Tao Jiejia the most was that she knew her place. After taking his money, she would obediently be his woman. She would not be like other women who would bite off more than they could chew and seek their next target. Therefore, even if he didn't marry her, he would still benefit from it. However, now that his life was in Tao Jiejia's hands, he panicked. He didn't know what choice Tao Jiejia would make. Jiejia, let's wait for the others to find us. All right, let's wait. Tao Jiejia answered quickly, but Chun Kangol could tell that Tao Jiejia wasn't as flustered as before. This wasn't a good sign. He decided that he had to win Tao Jiejia over no matter what. Jiejia, let's get engaged when we get out of here. Engagement? That's right. We've been talking for so long, and now we've gone through thick and thin together. If we can get out of here, we must get engaged. We've gone through great disasters, and I believe that you'll always be by my side when we face all kinds of difficulties in life. No matter what, he had to stabilize Tao Jiejia first. All right, Tao Jiejia answered quickly. This was what she had been dreaming of. However, she was very clear-headed. She knew that Qin Kangol was only making this promise because he was afraid that she would cut the rope. If they could really get out of here, Qin Kangol would probably get engaged to her. The premise was that she didn't cut the rope and someone came to save them. If they were to continue hanging here and no one came to find them, wouldn't she have to die with Qin Kangol? He instinctively turned around and relaxed when he saw that it was Tanghua. Tanghua walked to Mu Xiaoning with 2 bundles of wild vegetables. Mu Xiaoning, why are you slacking off here? Mu Xiaoning paused and raised his black hat a little, revealing his slightly dazed eyes. He looked at Tanghua, not expecting her to ask such a question. For a moment, he didn't know how to answer. You're not working, and you still want to eat later? Mu Xiaoning glanced at the 2 bundles of wild vegetables in Tangua's hands and finally said, Let's get some wind first. Chapter 5379. Eating wild vegetables all day. Salt can be extracted from the sea, but I don't know where meat comes from. I don't know how long I can last if this continues. Mu Xiaoning fell into deep thought. Eating wild vegetables all day wasn't good. He sized up Tanghua. She was indeed a little too thin. If she didn't get protein, her body would easily have problems. He had all kinds of delicious food in the secret room, but if he took them out, his identity would definitely be exposed. Then, all his preparations would be ruined. Why don't we walk around the beach and pick up some seafood? Tanghua said before Mu Xiaoning could say anything. Mu Xiaoning subconsciously agreed. Okay. Tanghua put the wild vegetables aside, took off her shoes, rolled up her pants and sleeves, and went into the water to search. Mu Xiaoning saw this and quickly followed, a little afraid that something would happen to her. An hour later, Mu Xiaoning found a lot of crabs. Looking at the crabs tied up in grass, although they weren't very big, he felt a kind of joy that he had never felt before. Mu Xiaoning didn't expect that catching crabs would make him so happy. By now, the 2 had put on their shoes and socks. Tanghua said, Today's harvest was good. Let's go back. The smile on Mu Xiaoning's face disappeared. He stared at the crabs on the ground. Go back? Go back and share the crabs with them? He had painstakingly caught them for her. Why should he share them with those people? Mu Xiaoning took out a flint from his wallet. Find a place to roast them. He looked straight at Tanghua. This little is not enough to share. There's no need. Those people didn't deserve to eat the crabs he caught. Tanghua didn't object. Mu Xiaoning took her to a more remote place. He picked up some dry leaves and branches and started roasting the crabs. Tanghua secretly took out a disc-array and placed it around the 2 of them to prevent anyone from noticing the fireworks. System. Fine. Host. Please indulge him. Mu Xiaoning was happy again. Catching crabs, roasting crabs, and eating crabs could be so happy. Was it because of her? Yesterday in the secret room, he tried to use his phone to contact Blackie, but for some reason, Blackie did not reply. It was as if he had never received a message from him. Therefore, for the time being, he did not know why Tanghua was here. Mu Xiaoning had never suspected that there was something wrong with Tanghua. In fact, her arrival had changed his plan. He had also thought about it. Once he was done, he would get in touch with the outside world and confess what he had done. When those people came, they made the entire town, including him and those people, disappear. He did not feel happy about being reborn. Since he could return to the time before this game, why couldn't he have done it earlier? Unfortunately, he returned to the day after his family's accident, and the darkness of his life began. If he had done it earlier, he would have been able to change even more things. Being reborn was not a blessing for him, but a form of torture for him. Mu Xiaoning, can we still get out? Mu Xiaoning's hand that was holding the crab paused. His eyes were filled with certainty. Yes. You can definitely get out. He already had a plan. You don't usually talk. Since you're saying this, you're definitely not comforting me. Tangwa said with a smile. Mu Xiaoning was infected. Did his words make people trust him so much? Time passed slowly. Tangwa and Mu Xiaoning carried the wild vegetables back to the town. Tao Jiejia and Chun Kangol were still hanging on the rope. They were tired and sleepy, and their mouths were dry. Kangol, I really want to drink water. Why haven't they found us yet? Chapter 5380. Jiejia, don't worry. It's only been half a day. They'll think that we're outside. Why would they look for us? They realize that we're missing. It should be because we didn't return at night. If they want to find us, they'll probably look for us during the day tomorrow. Chun Kangol comforted her. Jiejia, hang in there. Think about our future. We can't give up. Tao Jiejia didn't plan to cut the rope. She didn't want to give up until the very end. As long as she accompanied Chen Kangol through this, she would definitely be able to enter the Chen family. As for Chen Kangol, he would also treat her as his most trusted person. It was only half a day. She could indeed wait. She didn't eat or drink for 3 days. That should be the limit, right? Then she would give it a try. If it really didn't work in the end, she could only regret it. Chen Kangol wanted to live. She wanted to live too. It was better for one person to live than both of them dying, right? Kangol, how are you? I'm fine. As long as you're fine, I'm fine. Tao Jiejia's mind became clearer when she heard such gentle words. When had Chen Kangol ever spoken to her so gently? He was just afraid of death. Chun Kangol looked into the pit and saw the sharpened wooden strips. On top of the wooden strips, there was a mouse gnawing on them. After half a day, the mouse had already gnawed off a wooden strip. Under such circumstances, although he was coaxing Tao Jiejia, he didn't place all his hopes on her. After all, Tao Jiejia wanted his money. Who wouldn't want to live when their lives were threatened? Chun Kangol was looking forward to the mouse gnawing off those sharp wooden strips. When Tao Jiejia couldn't hold on anymore, he would have a chance to live too. Tao Jiejia didn't know this. She didn't want to talk at all, let alone shout for help. She didn't even have the strength. After hanging for half a day, she was already dizzy. The sky gradually darkened. The students who went out also returned to the town with their gains. Because of the 2 strange things that had happened before, no one dared to touch the things in the town for the time being. They all obediently looked for food and brought it back. When they were counting the people, they didn't see Tao Jiejia and Chen Kangol. They frowned. Why aren't they back yet? I don't know. Maybe they were too excited and forgot the time. It's possible. They've always been like that. Let's wait a little longer. Maybe he'll be back soon. Everyone took out weeds and cooked them. The people who went to look for seafood before didn't find anything. They could only eat unpalatable wild vegetables. After not seeing any oil for the past 2 days, everyone had lost weight. Moreover, their faces had become slightly sallow, and their strength had become much weaker. When they walked, their legs were weak. The sky was completely dark, but Chun Kangol and Tao Jiejia still hadn't returned. Chapter 5381. Shall we go too? Tangwa called out to Mu Xiaoning, who was in a daze. She noticed that his gaze was fixed on Wei Yin and Bai Tian's backs. She knew that Mu Xiaoning had his eyes on them and was planning to do something. She had no intention of stopping him. As long as Mu Xiaoning didn't kill anyone, he could do whatever he wanted. Weren't these students here to play games? Since they were already here, of course they had to play to their heart's content. Madam Host, Mu Xiaoning has pigeon eggs in his pocket. He's currently observing the environment. He'll probably pretend that he picked up these eggs when he's at a suitable place. Then I'll stay away from him in case he can't find a chance. System, is this really okay? Not long after, Mu Xiaoning suddenly called Tangui over. Then, in front of Tangua, he parted the grass and saw a nest on a small branch. There were a few eggs in the nest. Madam Host, this guy is so serious. He even made a nest. Tangua watched as Mu Xiaoning picked up the pigeon eggs and shook them gently in his hand. Then, he said to her in all seriousness, "There are no birds in them. They're edible. Let's eat outside in the afternoon. There's too little food. There's not enough to share." Mu Xiaoning put the pigeon eggs into his wallet one by one. "Come out with me in the afternoon." Tangua replied, "Okay." Don't tell others. There's not enough to share, Mu Xiaoning emphasized seriously. Tanghua hurriedly agreed. She had eaten too much to tell those people that she picked up pigeon eggs. There were only a few eggs. If word got out, who knew who would eat them? At this moment, Mu Xiaoning thought of something, and the corners of his lips curled up. Actually, it wasn't that he couldn't let those people see. They were still considered united now. If something good appeared, the distribution of resources would definitely be unequal. Then, wouldn't that be an opportunity for conflict? As his fingers touched the smooth pigeon eggs, a perfect plan appeared in Mu Xiaoning's mind. He wanted that group of people to fall out with each other. Tanghua felt a malicious aura from Mu Xiaoning, but it wasn't directed at her. When it was close to noon, no one was able to find any traces of Qin Kangel and Tao Jejia. They could only give up and return. Let's look for it in the afternoon. If we really can't find it, there's nothing we can do about it. Dooley said. Receiving everyone's agreement, Bai Tian also sighed. In the afternoon, Tanghua and Mu Xiaoning went out to eat roasted pigeon eggs. That afternoon, when she returned to the town, she heard someone say that they had found 3 eggs. She took a look. Weren't those eggs? Wei Yin was analyzing the 3 eggs. It's possible that the chickens were raised by the people in town. Later, the people here disappeared, and the chickens ran into the forest to survive. I'm really lucky to have picked this up. The one who found the 3 eggs was a girl. She originally wanted to keep them for herself, but there were other people around at the time. Someone saw it, so she could only bring the eggs back. The girl was in a bad mood when she saw everyone surrounding the 3 eggs and looking at them with craving expressions. No matter what, she was the one who picked up the egg. These people's gazes were too strange. How are we going to split the eggs? Xiang Wen's face was also filled with longing. She hadn't eaten meat for a few days, and eating wild vegetables every day wasn't enough to fill her stomach. She really wanted to rush over and eat the eggs. When the girl heard Xiang Wen's words, her expression changed drastically. She couldn't help but glare at Xiang Wen. Xiang Wen was too hungry and didn't notice this at all. Everyone looked at Dooley. Dooley was also in a difficult position. Although he looked calm, he also wanted to eat the eggs. He, who had always been able to handle everything with ease, was silent for a long time. In the end, his gaze landed on the little girl. Everyone held their breaths, waiting for Dooley's next words. New website to download the latest TXT ebook. Please click to read this book on mobile, to post a review, to make it easier for you to read it next time. You can click on this save button at the bottom to record this reading record. You will see it the next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends. Thank you for your support. Chapter 5382. Weren't these students here to play games? Since they were already here, of course they had to play to their heart's content. Madam Host, Mu Xiaoning has pigeon eggs in his pocket. He's currently observing the environment. He'll probably pretend that he picked up these eggs when he's at a suitable place. Then I'll stay away from him in case he can't find a chance. System. Is this really okay? Not long after, Mu Xiaoning suddenly called Tanghua over. Then, in front of Tanghua, he parted the grass and saw a nest on a small branch. There were a few eggs in the nest. Madam Host, this guy is so serious. He even made a nest. Tanghua watched as Mu Xiaoning picked up the pigeon eggs and shook them gently in his hand. Then, he said to her seriously, "There are no birds inside. It's edible. Let's eat outside in the afternoon. There's too little food. There's not enough to go around." Mu Xiaoning put the pigeon eggs into his pocket one by one. "Come out with me in the afternoon." Tanghua replied, "Okay. Don't tell others. There's not enough to go around," Mu Xiaoning emphasized seriously. Tanghua hurriedly agreed. She had eaten too much to tell those people that she picked up pigeon eggs. There were only a few eggs. If word got out, who knew who would eat them? At this moment, Mu Xiaoning thought of something, and the corners of his lips curled up. Actually, it wasn't that he couldn't let those people see. They were still considered united now. If something good appeared, the distribution of resources would definitely be unequal. Then, wouldn't that be an opportunity for conflict? His fingers touched the smooth pigeon eggs. A perfect plan had already appeared in Mu Xiaoning's mind. He wanted that group of people to fall out with each other. Tanghua felt a malicious aura from Mu Xiaoning, but it wasn't directed at her. When it was almost noon, no one could find Qin Kangol and Tao Jujia. They could only give up and return. Let's look around in the afternoon. If we really can't find them, there's nothing we can do, Dooley said. After receiving everyone's agreement, Bai Tian also sighed. In the afternoon, Tanghua and Mu Shaoning went out to eat roasted pigeon eggs. That afternoon, when she returned to the town, she heard someone say that they picked up 3 eggs. She took a look. Weren't those eggs? Wei Yin was analyzing the 3 eggs. It's possible that the chickens were raised by the people in town. Later, the people here disappeared, and the chickens ran into the forest to survive. I'm really lucky to have picked this up. The one who found the 3 eggs was a girl. She originally wanted to keep them for herself, but there were other people around at the time. Someone saw it, so she could only bring the eggs back. The girl was in a bad mood when she saw everyone surrounding the 3 eggs and looking at them with craving expressions. No matter what, she was the one who picked up the egg. These people's gazes were too strange. How do we divide the eggs? Xiang Wen's face was also full of longing. She hadn't eaten meat for several days, and eating wild vegetables every day wasn't enough to fill her stomach. She really wanted to rush over and eat the eggs. When the girl heard Xiang Wen's words, her expression changed drastically. She couldn't help but glare at Xiang Wen. Xiang Wen was too hungry to notice this. Everyone looked at Dooley. Dooley was also in a difficult position. Don't be fooled by his calm expression. In fact, he also wanted to eat the eggs. He, who had always been able to handle everything with ease, was silent for a long time. Finally, his gaze landed on the little girl. Everyone held their breaths, waiting for Dooley's next words. Digression. Wrong message just now. Missed a chapter. Chapter 5383. Yun Lingling was the one who picked up the 3 eggs. So, does anyone have any objections to Yun Lingling taking 1 egg alone? Dooley looked at the crowd. Seeing everyone nod their heads, he heaved a sigh of relief. Right now, we're all on this isolated island. If we want to survive, we'll have to work together when the people outside find us. So, why don't we boil the remaining 2 eggs in the wild vegetables and make egg soup? Hearing that, the crowd was both expectant and disappointed. Seeing that no one objected, even Yun Lingling, who was a little unhappy, didn't say anything. Dooley knew that this was the best solution. With so many people boiling the eggs in the wild vegetables, there wouldn't be much left in the end. If he could, he wanted to eat it all for himself. Since no one has any objections, we'll boil the eggs tonight. Dooley placed one of the eggs into Yun Lingling's hands. This is what you deserve. You can do with it however you want. Under everyone's fervent gazes, Yun Lingling hurriedly put the egg into her clothes, planning to boil it. It wasn't easy to see different ingredients. If no one saw her picking up the eggs, all 3 eggs would be hers. Before long, everyone was busy cooking the wild vegetables. However, they didn't forget to look over at Yun Lingling. She had already boiled the eggs and was peeling them in the corner. Looking at the snow-white eggs, Yun Lingling gulped. Just as she was about to take a bite, the eggs in her hands disappeared in the blink of an eye. By the time she found the eggs again, they had already been eaten by another girl. Yun Lingling's eyes turned red immediately. She pounced over fiercely and shouted, "Chen Xiaohan, you're too much." Chen Xiaohan was pushed down by Yun Lingling. Her mouth was still trying to reject her while she covered it with her hands. On the other hand, Yun Lingling tried to pry her hands away, trying to get the eggs out of her mouth. For a moment, the two of them were locked in a fierce fight. Especially when Yun Lingling saw that Chen Xiaohan had already swallowed the eggs, she was so angry that she burst into tears. Ignoring the crowd, she cried out loudly, "Chen Xiaohan, you're too much. You're really too much." She then slapped Chen Xiaohan's face with all her might, causing her cheeks to hurt. Chen Xiaohan had already swallowed the eggs. She immediately grabbed Yun Lingling's hair. Seeing that the fight was getting more and more intense, Dooley reacted quickly and said, "Hurry and stop them. Hurry up and beat the eggs." Just then, Wei Yin reminded the girl who was stirring the soup. "The water is boiling." The girl who was stirring the wild vegetable soup was slightly stunned. She looked at Wei Yin with some confusion and then looked at the wild vegetable soup in the pot. The water was still a little bit away from boiling. However, she still subconsciously beat the 2 eggs into the wild vegetable soup and kept stirring it. There were 2 cauldrons here, both of which were found in the small town. They were both huge iron cauldrons. She cracked an egg in each pot, but there weren't many egg splashes. Smelling the delicious smell of the eggs, Wei Yin could not help but swallow her saliva. At this moment, she heard Yun Lingling's voice. "Class rep, I don't care. I was the one who found the eggs, and now Qin Shaohan stole my eggs. What should I do? You want me to stop? Fine, give me another egg." Dooley was in a difficult position. There were only a few dozen people to share 2 eggs. It was already very tight. Once the eggs were boiled, they would at most be able to taste a bit of the eggs. Not only would it not fill their stomachs, but it would also arouse their cravings. Chapter 53-84. If they were to share an egg, they might not even be able to smell it anymore. He looked at Qin Shaohan, who was pinned to the ground and bitten by Yun Lingling. "You guys are usually pretty close. How can you guys fight at a time like this?" "Qin Shaohan, especially you. I've already arranged for everyone to share the egg soup. Why did you snatch Yun Lingling's egg?" Qin Shaohan's face was filled with a row of gums. Yun Lingling's bite was vicious as she pursed her lips. "What do you mean by good? If we were good, would she have eaten it all by herself? In the past, whenever I had good food, I would always share it with her. Whenever I had good food, I would always bring it to her. Cosmetics, skincare products, perfume, which one of them wasn't given to her? Now, she could eat an egg, but she didn't think about me. She didn't even ask me anything. I finally understood. What kind of friends are we? She doesn't even think about me. I've been here for a few days now, and there hasn't been any news from the outside. Who knows how long more we'll be here? Of course, I need to replenish my body so that I can survive the people outside. I don't want to die." Qin Shaohan's words made everyone fall silent, especially those who were in the same dorm as them. They all knew about this, especially since Qin Shaohan would often help Yun Lingling get food and other small tasks. "Qin Shaohan, you're disgusting." Yun Lingling was a little agitated. Qin Shaohan was completely indifferent. "Who's the disgusting one? Everyone knows that. Bite me to death if you can. Who knows when we'll be able to get out of this godforsaken place." A few male classmates pulled Yun Lingling away. As for Yun Lingling's request to share an egg with her, of course, that was impossible. "Yun Lingling, I'm sorry, but the egg is already in the pot." Wei Yin walked over and patted her shoulder with a smile. "You can have 2 more bowls of soup later. Everyone else can only have 1 bowl." Yun Lingling was furious. Thinking about the egg from before, she almost choked. From today onwards, he and Qin Shaohan were irreconcilable. Yun Lingling compromised and drank 2 bowls of soup in the end. Qin Shaohan was punished by Dooley to not have dinner tonight because she snatched the food. She didn't have any objections. An egg was much better than the clear and watery wild vegetable egg soup. Tang was sat in the corner and witnessed this. She glanced at Mu Xiaoning from the corner of her eye. Although he was expressionless and looked the same as before, she could tell that he was in a good mood. 3 eggs were enough to split this group of people. He should feel a sense of accomplishment, right? She believed that there would be more such incidents in the future. Tonight should be the only night where they weren't that hungry since coming to the island, right? At least she had some soup with eggs. The next morning, everyone was awakened by hunger. Perhaps the wild vegetable egg drop soup from yesterday had made them feel that it was a little delicious, so they went to the forest early in the morning to try their luck. However, Mu Xiaoning had no intention of giving them eggs today. He had prepared another gift. He didn't go to the forest, but made an excuse to go to the beach. No one asked him, as they were used to him being alone. In fact, he had disguised himself and ran into the forest. He had been preparing for this day for a long time and had even done special training for it. Hence, walking in the grass was like walking on flat ground. He knew that Wei Yin and Bai Tian were inseparable and would usually walk together. The students who entered the forest today all had different thoughts. They didn't want to be in a group with too many people, so they tacitly went their separate ways. A scream interrupted Bai Tian's thoughts. She recognized the voice as Wei Yan's. She hurriedly chased after the voice and shouted, "Wei Yan, what happened to you?" "Wei Yan, I'm here, Bai Tian, I'm here. I fell into a pit and was bitten by something." Bai Tian could hear the pain in Wei Yan's voice. She hurried over. Soon, she found a pit. After pushing aside some grass, she saw Wei Yan. Of course, she also saw the other situation in the pit. A snake was wrapped around Wei Yan's leg. Wei Yan also noticed it and screamed in fear. "Bai Tian, quickly pull me up." This pit wasn't shallow. Bai Tian didn't know what to do for a moment. She hurriedly looked around, hoping to find a tool. However, other than the grass, there wasn't even a decent branch. Chapter 5386. Bai Tian. Wei Yan saw that Bai Tian was in a daze. "Hurry up and find a rope. This snake has been coiling around my leg and even bit me just now. It's not poisonous." Bai Tian was a little flustered. "There's no life here. There are no branches either. Why don't I call for help and get the other students to come and help?" Wei Yan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. "Can you guarantee that after you call for help, you can still find this direction?" Bai Tian was silent. No. Therefore, she couldn't call for help. She wouldn't be able to find it later. "Are there stones above?" Bai Tian quickly looked. "Yes. Throw 2 stones down first. I'll deal with this snake first." Wei Yan was also afraid, but her strong desire to survive made her have to be strong. Anyway, Bai Tian was unreliable. She was just a delicate girl who didn't know anything and was a little naive. Bai Tian did as she was told. However, when she went to pick up the stones, she realized that there were 2 snakes around her. These 2 snakes didn't coil around the stones, but were not far from them. If she reached out, she might be bitten. This snake had color. She didn't have any common sense. It was most likely poisonous. If she was bitten and didn't inject the serum in time, she might die. Bai Tian trembled. "Wei Yan, 2 snakes suddenly appeared beside the stones. They are very colorful. They might be poisonous." As soon as Bai Tian finished speaking, Wei Yan stopped talking. The snake that bit her wasn't poisonous and didn't have any color. However, she felt that her body was in good condition. Even if it was poisonous, it probably wasn't very poisonous and wouldn't kill her. "I'll see if I can lure them away first and then pick up the stones." Bai Tian's voice sounded again. This made Wei Yan heave a sigh of relief. She thought that Bai Tian would give up on saving her. Thinking about it, according to Bai Tian's personality, she wouldn't think that far and wouldn't leave her in the lurch. "Be careful." "Got it. Are you okay?" "Wei Yan, I'm fine for now. You can find some thin branches and take them away." "I'll try. I'll get 2 branches from the trees." She couldn't take down branches that could bear the weight of an adult, but she could still break branches that could take away 2 snakes. Wei Yan waited while Bai Tian nervously broke the branches. Mu Xiaoning, who was hiding in the dense foliage, was watching this scene. He was the one who had asked someone to dig the pit, and he was the one who had placed the snake inside. It wasn't very poisonous, just a little bit. It wasn't fatal. The 2 poisonous snakes outside were also released by him. They were extremely poisonous. The reason for this was similar to Tao Jiejia and Chun Kangle's situation. If Bai Tian gave up on saving Wei Yan could still live. At that time, the 2 of them would turn against each other. If Bai Tian saved Wei Yan, then he would set up another trap. Chapter 5387. Wei Yan was a little happy. Okay. Wei Yan, who got the stone, smashed the snake to death. An hour later, Bai Tian helped the injured Wei Yan back to the town. At this time, there was no one in the town. Bai Tian looked at Wei Yan's red and swollen leg. It didn't look too serious and she was relieved. "Wei Yan, how are you?" "I'm fine. It shouldn't be a very poisonous snake. It's slightly poisonous." "That's good. Why don't I help you suck it?" Wei Yin didn't refuse. She really couldn't do it herself. When everyone came back, they found out that Wei Yin was injured. Of course, they didn't find any eggs, but someone caught crabs by the sea. However, there were only 2 or 3 small crabs. These things didn't have much meat and were basically inedible. But no matter how small the meat was, it was still meat. The crabs were still used to make soup, and the person who found them could have one alone. Tao Jiejia and Chun Kangol were hanging upside down. 2 days had passed, and they were both in a semi-conscious state. Many of the sharp wooden sticks in the pit had been gnawed off by the rats. Chun Kangol felt more and more relaxed. When all the wooden sticks were bitten off, he asked Tao Jiejia to cut the rope. Tao Jiejia was with him at a critical time. He wouldn't treat her badly. The two of them rarely communicated. Their lips were dry and cracked, and they could barely speak. Occasionally, they would groan to show that they were still alive. Tao Jiejia was really at the limit of her body. She couldn't hold the knife anymore. If she continued and the knife fell to the ground, she would never have a chance to cut the rope. She wanted to go out and live. She had waited for 2 days, and no one could find them. She had already persevered. Now, she really just wanted to live. She didn't say anything. She reached out and cut the rope with the knife. The knife was very fast, and the rope broke. Then, Chun Kangol screamed. Tao Jiejia fell to the ground. Although it hurt, she felt reborn. She didn't dare to look at Chun Kangol in the pit. Even if she could save him now, she wouldn't. If she went out, Chun Kangol would definitely kill her. Therefore, the only way was to make Chun Kangol stay here forever so that she would not be hurt. She had been here for 2 days and was half dead. At least she did not let Chun Kangol down. After resting for a while, Tao Jiejia hurriedly got up from the ground and walked in the direction of the town based on her memories. The paper puppet that had turned into a rat had already removed the array formation. Tao Jiejia exhausted all her strength and finally returned to the small town. Along the way, she had even prepared an excuse. When she saw everyone, she told them that she and Chun Kangol had met with an accident. Both of them had fallen into a deep pit. Later, she had crawled out and did not see Chun Kangol. No one doubted her when they saw her sorry state. Tao Jiejia didn't dare to mention the existence of the mysterious man. After all, if she said too many things, she would be exposed and it would be difficult to make up a story. She didn't know that Chun Kangol's leg was only injured. He had eaten some grass and was climbing out of the pit with the help of the wooden sticks. After returning to the small town, Tao Jiejia cherished her life very much. After eating several bowls of wild vegetable soup, she finally fell asleep. In the morning, before dawn, Tanghua was woken up by the system. "Dear host, Chun Kangol is back. He drank some and ate the rest of the wild vegetable soup. Now, he is going straight to Tao Jiejia's room. He has gone in. Dear host, you can get up and eat." Without the system's reminder, Tanghua had already gotten up. At this moment, she heard a scream from Tao Jiejia. Chapter 5388. Tao Jiejia's scream woke everyone up. Tanghua followed the sound unhurriedly. When she arrived, there were already a few people in Tao Jiejia's room. Help! On the way, Tao Jiejia's cries for help could be heard. Before this, Tao Jiejia and Chun Kangol were in the same room. Hence, no one else was staying in this room. When everyone came in with torches, they saw Tao Jiejia being slapped by Chun Kangol on the ground. Chun Kangol was in a sorry state. His face was pale and his eyes were protruding. His expression looked even scarier. There were bloodstains on his body. While everyone was in a daze, Tao Jiejia had already been slapped a few times. Chun Kangol had lost a lot of stamina. In addition to his injuries, he didn't use enough strength. Of course, it was still a little painful. Everyone quickly pulled Chun Kangol away. Seeing Chun Kangol's gloomy expression and Tao Jiejia's look of wanting to eat him, everyone knew that something must have happened. The girls surrounded Tao Jiejia, while the boys pulled Chun Kangol away. Together, they walked outside. There were a few bonfires outside. They were reserved to prevent their lighters from breaking. If that happened, there would be no way out. Everyone was already here. They looked at Tao Jiejia strangely. Didn't she say in the afternoon that Chun Kangol fell into the pit with her and didn't see him? Now, Chen Kangol came back aggressively and even beat her up. Obviously, things were different. Dooley walked in front of Chen Kangol and patted his health. "You're injured. Bandage it first." He saw that Chen Kangol's pants were torn and there were blood stains on it. "I've already bandaged it. There's no first aid kit here. This is the only way to stop the bleeding." When Chen Kangol spoke, he didn't even look at Dooley. His eyes were fixed on Tao Jiejia. Tao Jiejia finally saw that the person who slapped her was Chen Kangol. Why wasn't he dead? It looked like he was just lightly injured. If she had known this would happen, she would have held on longer. She would have lived a good life. At this moment, Tao Jiejia was filled with regret. After the regret, she felt even more fear. "Do you regret not being able to hold on for one more day?" Chen Kangol said sarcastically. Tao Jiejia, I knew that you wanted my money, but I didn't expect you to be so heartless in the end. You actually cut the rope without saying a word. That pit is full of sharpened wood. Do you know what it means when the rope breaks? I will be pierced by thousands of arrows." At the mention of this, Chen Kangol was furious. In the first 2 days, he was quite touched. No matter what, Tao Jiejia could actually persevere for so long. He was thinking that when the rats ate all the wooden strips, he would ask Tao Jiejia to cut the rope. He didn't expect Tao Jiejia to be in such a hurry. She didn't even wait for him and didn't even inform him. Fortunately, there were only 2 wooden planks left. He tried his best to avoid being hit in his vitals, but his thigh was also scratched and bled quite a bit. Fortunately, he often worked out and did some strength training. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to hold on until he came back. Everyone understood what was going on from Chen Kangol's words. Dooley still wanted to know more. "Kangol, what happened to you 2 these few days?" Chen Kangol knew that he couldn't teach Tao Jiejia a lesson now. He sat down quietly and told her everything that happened these few days. He saw Tao Jiejia's pale face and smiled crookedly. Everyone knew about this. After this, who would dare to be friends with Tao Jiejia? Chapter 53-89. Tao Jiejia, this isn't over. Chen Kangol's harsh words provoked Tao Jiejia. She shouted with red eyes, "Chen Kangol, what are you angry about?" "Yes, you should be angry. But no matter what, I've been with you for more than 2 days. I've already reached my limit. If it were someone else, I might have given up on you that day, cut the rope, and run away. If I hadn't been with you for more than 2 days, would the rats have eaten those wooden sticks? If I had heartlessly cut the rope, your corpse would have smelled." "Chen Kangol, in the face of life and death, let's exchange. If it were you, would you have done what I did?" Chen Kangol's expression was ugly. "If it were an exchange, we would have been out long ago. If it weren't for your weak strength, would you have pulled me up?" "Chen Kangol, you have to be reasonable. Don't you feel embarrassed saying this? You're more than 1.8 meters tall and work out frequently. Your weight is almost the same as your height. I'm only more than 80 kilograms and I'm hanging upside down. Can I pull you up? If I could pull you up, would I have stayed with you for 2 days? To be honest, I did it for your money because I wanted to live a different life. But I'm not the kind of person who has no conscience for money. No matter what, I've persisted for 2 days. That's enough. Do you dare say that you didn't persist for 2 days because you wanted to rely on me for the rest of your life when you got out?" Chen Kangol exposed Tao Jiejia's previous thoughts and even mocked her. "So, don't make it sound so noble and innocent. Isn't the reason why you persisted for 2 days mostly because you wanted to get what you wanted? In the end, you couldn't hold on anymore because you felt that you were at your limit and decided to protect yourself first. Tao Jiejia, is there a problem with me protecting my own life first? I'm not a saint or a philanthropist. I'm not the kind of person who would sacrifice herself for others. I don't want to be someone who would sacrifice herself for love. At critical times, protecting oneself is human nature. Chen Kangol, I can't be bothered to talk about this with you." Because Chen Kangol realized that no one was criticizing Tao Jiejia. Everyone, including her brother Dooley, was silent and didn't express their opinions on this matter. What did this mean? It meant that everyone here agreed with what Tao Jiejia said. Actually, if it were him, he would definitely protect himself. However, he was still very angry. Tao Jiajia was a heartless woman who only loved money. Let's put this matter behind us. Just now, you said that a mysterious person appeared to pass you the knife. Wei Yan broke the silence and looked at Tao Jiajia. Do you still remember what that person looked like? I didn't see what he looked like. He was wearing a black robe, and his face was covered. He looked like a Grim Reaper from an anime, and his blade looked like the Grim Reaper's scythe. As for his voice, it was very mechanical and a little hoarse. That's all I can remember. Tao Jiajia looked like she was ready to throw caution to the wind. Since the truth has been exposed, I'm not afraid of anything. Not many people can make a different choice for me at that time. Through this person, I can be sure that we are being watched. Our every move is under the eyes of the other party. Wei Yan said, I think so too, but I don't know what the person behind this is thinking. I don't know the real motive, but I'm sure that the other party wanted to kill us. Chun Kangol said, if it wasn't for my good luck, I might have really died. Chapter 5390. After saying this, he glanced at Tao Jiajia. It was impossible for him to forget this grudge. Tao Jiajia was not afraid this time. Who knew if they could get out of here alive? What was there to be afraid of? Chun Kangol, who had left his family, was just a paper tiger. Then what should we do now? Bai Tian asked the question that was on everyone's mind. If someone was behind this, how could they get out of control and return to where they belonged? Things happened one after another. Every time they could get out of danger, it was all due to luck. If their luck ran out, wouldn't someone die? Everyone here could become that unlucky person. It was only a matter of time. It was early in the morning, and it was already a little cold. Thinking of what might happen, accompanied by a slight breeze, everyone felt a chill from head to toe. If someone planned this, then what about the walking clothes that night? The one who spoke was the boy who peed outside that night. I'm sure that those clothes are definitely not high-tech. No one is controlling them. I saw it fly up with my own eyes. It even went up the stairs and climbed over the railing as if there was someone inside. The only thing I can be sure of is that the clothes are flat. The boy's words made everyone fall silent again. Maybe it's not that someone planned something, but that we barged into a place we shouldn't have. Do you think that's possible? We only encountered those traps when we went there ourselves. If someone really planned all of this, the other party should have taken the initiative to come here to harm us. For example, wouldn't it be easier to just stab us in the neck while we were sleeping? Bai Tian said, and the mysterious person that Tao Jiajia met might have thought that it was fun and liked to play with people outside. If he really wanted to harm you, why didn't he just kill the two of you who couldn't resist? Bai Tian's words made everyone ponder again. Yes, that made sense. Tanghua was silent. She glanced at Mu Xiaoning in the corner. He was still burying his head. This guy is secretly laughing. Dear host, he probably thinks that his plan is perfect and can make everyone confused. Mu Xiaoning was indeed laughing. He was proud of his plan, but at the same time, he felt regretful. This group of people was really lucky. A few days had passed so far. In another 1 or 2 days, it would be almost a week. No one had died. Although the plan was good, he was a little impatient that no one died. Could it be that he had to do it himself? Dear host, there's killing intent. He's getting impatient, Tanghua replied calmly. Keep an eye on him. Don't let his hands be stained with blood. Since their discussion was fruitless, they could only repeat their previous routine. They would go out to look for food during the day and carve tree branches to spread the news outside. Wei Yan suggested that they go back and see if they could pick up the knife. Mu Xiaoning had no intention of stopping him. A knife could not change anything. It could also make things more convenient for Tanghua so that she would not have to suffer so much. When they went out, Tanghua called Mu Xiaoning. Let's go out and see if we can pick up some good stuff. Mu Xiaoning replied, all right. He looked at Tanghua and felt that he should provide her with pigeon eggs tomorrow, in case there was any problem with her body. He had a lot of food, but unfortunately, he couldn't share it with her. Before the plan was completed, he didn't want to expose himself. Chapter 5391. Tanghua could see that Mu Xiaoning was deep in thought. He must be feeling conflicted and complicated right now, right? However, he still did not change his initial decision. In fact, he was already impatient. He went out to look for food in the morning. In the afternoon, Mu Xiaoning used the excuse that he was not feeling well to rest in the house. In fact, the system had observed that Mu Xiaoning had gone to the secret room. Other than Tanghua, no one would interact with Mu Xiaoning. Besides, he had locked the door. Most people would choose to turn back when they encountered this. Tanghua did not intend to knock on the door. She just let the system keep an eye on Mu Xiaoning. Mu Xiaoning was scrolling through the information of the students in this class on his phone. The screen of the phone was currently pausing on Du Li's photo. Dear host, is he going to do something to Du Li? The others were incidental. Du Li was the main culprit. Before Tanghua could speak, the system spoke again. Dear host, he took out a phone from a box. I scanned it. This phone belongs to Du Li. He is using Du Li's phone to play a standalone game. Tanghua had already gone to the beach. She was carving words on the tree branches with the others. Then, she threw the branches out. She was not afraid that the branches would be thrown out. Even if the people outside found out, they would not be able to enter. She was now thinking that when this matter was over and the people outside came to find her, she would have to erase all the evidence here. This was to prevent people from discovering the strangeness of this island and finding evidence from there. Dear host, you are thinking too far ahead. Have you thought about where you're going to take your wedding photos and what kind of photos you're going to choose? Are you going to go overboard if you don't beat me up for 3 days? Sob, sob, sob. You are a male system after all. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by your little brother? Those little guys won't dare to laugh at me. They are not as good as me. Until now, those disobedient systems in the Space Administration who wanted to challenge me have all been defeated by me. The system snorted. So, even if you are in the system and have different identities, so what? You still can't beat me in a fight. Tanghua said, but they have serial numbers. System. Dear host, you're too much of a bully. 111 said before that the signal from the Space Administration's boss is getting better and better. Who knows, maybe when the text can be transmitted over, I'll have a serial number. Wouldn't it be easy for a wild system like me to get a serial number? Then, congratulations in advance. Mu Xiaoning spent the entire afternoon playing with Du Li's phone. He only stopped when the phone ran out of battery and shut down automatically. Chapter 5392. Got it. Class monitor. The student who got the lighter only felt that Du Li was a little weird today, so he didn't think too much about it. After they left, Du Li opened the drawer and took out his phone. Before he could laugh, he found that his phone was turned off. There was no battery. At that moment, the door was suddenly pushed open. He subconsciously put his hand behind his back. The phone was in his hand. He couldn't explain himself, so he had to hide it first. In class, the fire is lit. I'm here to return the lighter. Okay, put it on the cupboard. The student who returned the lighter still felt that Du Li was a little weird, especially when he had one hand behind his back, as if he was hiding something. The student's eyes darkened. Did Du Li find something good and secretly eat it? After a while, the news that Du Li must have secretly hidden something and ate it in his room spread in a small circle. Everyone was a little afraid of Du Li, so they didn't dare to mention it in front of him. However, they all kept it in mind. As the days passed, there was still no hope of leaving. Who knew what would happen on this island? Therefore, people still had to be a little selfish. Tao Jiejie was right. Everyone wanted to live. In order to survive in this place, food and water were the most important things, other than avoiding the dangers that might appear. Du Li understood that the phone appeared at the wrong time. It was most likely a plot by the person behind it. He just didn't know who this person was. Was there a plan, or was it just a prank? The key now was to get rid of the phone to avoid misunderstandings. What made Du Li even more surprised was that in the afternoon, someone suggested that they should split up. Whoever found something would get it. That would be fairer. The fire seed belonged to everyone, but if they found something, they could use it themselves. After all, no one knew how long they would stay here. They couldn't always take care of those who couldn't even take care of themselves, right? They could form a small circle. There were so many pots in the town, and no one could use one. There was really no need to eat from the same pot every day. Not only was it tiring, but they also couldn't get much. It was especially unfair to those who found something good. Those who had been taken advantage of quickly agreed, expressing that it was a good idea. Dooley immediately objected. Let's go first. What we need the most is unity. If we're not united, then we might not be able to wait until the people outside find us. Then, wouldn't people like us, who know how to cook, look for food, and are busy with everything, be at a disadvantage? Class monitor. Most people in the class don't know how to do anything. At most, they can find some wild vegetables, but even if they find them, they might not be edible. Seriously, it's been a week, and everything has been done by us. It's too tiring. Chapter 53:93. Splitting up at this time is indeed disadvantageous in the long run. Wei Yin said, we're all classmates. We're staying on the island because of an accident. We don't really want to settle down here. For safety and the series of things that may happen next, I don't think there's a need to split up. It's easy to cause disharmony, and it's disadvantageous to all of us. Yun Lingling. Anyway, it's not your eggs that were stolen. If you're willing to contribute it, it's your business. Stop being a neutral person and act like a wise person. Besides, why should we listen to the class leader and you? Can't we live on our own? Yes, live on our own. We're just informing the class leader. You have no right to control us. The person who spoke was the classmate who went to get the lighter in the morning. His name was Cui Yuanyo. Right now, our common property is the fire seed. Other than this, we'll live on our own. How long we can last is up to fate. Anyway, this way, I can last longer. As for the other things, when the time comes, we'll barter and exchange with labor. Isn't that good? Cui Yuanyong thought to himself, you're all secretly hiding things in class. You usually act righteous. When you're enjoying life, the ones who are tired and do the hard work are the small ones like us. On what basis could he, Dooley, command from high above, do nothing, and enjoy the same treatment as the rest of them who were doing manual labor? Yes, this way, no one will think that someone is prepared and slack off. If they don't work, they'll just wait to starve to death. Yun Lingling said. She was still brooding over the fact that her eggs were stolen last time, and she could only drink 2 bowls of wild vegetable egg soup with a little bit of egg flavor. Wei Yin frowned. She looked around at everyone and found that basically no one objected to this. It seemed that everyone was willing to take care of themselves. This was a big taboo. Under these conditions, who wouldn't want to eat alone? She also wanted to. However, once she did this, the group would disband. As time passed, it would be unfriendly to everyone, especially now that they knew that there were other people on the island who were very unfriendly to them. If something happened, they would be a plate of loose sand. There was nothing they could do. She thought of the couple who turned against each other, Tao Jiejia and Chen Kangle. If those people who were hiding on the island used this method to instigate them, it was hard to guarantee that they would not kill each other. It's decided then. In the future, the few of us in the dormitory will be a small group. We will take care of our own meals. If you want to eat from the same pot, that's your business. The few of us won't agree to it, Cui Yuanyong said. He also went over and occupied a pot. He used a stone to write a name on the floor and marked out a territory, indicating that this was the place of the few people in the dormitory. With Cui Yuanyong taking the lead, the other small groups also went to occupy a pot. When Dooley and Wei Yin saw this, they knew that they couldn't stop it. They could only stand there helplessly and watch the chaos. Since we can't stop it, then forget it. Wei Yin and Bai Tian walked to Dooley's side. It's useless to force everyone together. Dooley, that's the only way. In the end, Dooley, Wei Yin, Bai Tian, Chen Kangle, and Tao Jiejia formed a small group. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.